Okay, so we are recording now, and I will start the slideshow. So I felt like there's a lot of different carers joining the patch group, and we're all at different stages. A lot of us have been through challenging times, been through crisis. Some people are in a stage where they're hitting rocky bits. Some people are in a stage where they're thinking about adoption. So this is an all-rounder. It's not specific to any level of the journey. It's very much sort of pick up what you want, drop what you don't. So I'm Fiona. I am a social worker, an adopter, and an adoptee, and patch founder. And I've got a great committee behind me who also help run patch. Um, so first of all, it's really important that you all know that it's okay not to be okay within adoption, fostering, SGO, kinship care. It's really hard caring for children who've been through trauma. And if you find it hard, then you keep reminding yourself it's okay. It's not the pressure that you feel sometimes on this journey is because of what we're doing. It's not because of a weakness or a vulnerability or a lack of resilience. It's because of the situation we find ourselves in. So it's really important that we know that. That it's okay to have hard days, make mistakes, be yourself, ask for help, not know everything, struggle. So during the presentation, I want you to be mindful of others. There is going to be a Q&A at the end, but feel free to ask in the chat and we'll come to them at the end. And if you want slides or a recording, please be patient, but I will get them to you if you send me an email. So first of all, it's not you. Uh, I just kind of went over that bit. Challenging times and issues with being a parent, it doesn't automatically mean it's you. And with our children, because of their early life trauma or their DNA, the genetics that have transferred, or because of their experiences in the womb with substances, there are lots of complicated factors that impact on the way they live. And the problems that we have because of their trauma symptoms mean that it's very hard on us. So I just want you to know it's not you. Um, but it's also not them. And I'm speaking from experience. My two of my children don't live with me anymore because it was impossible. And I don't blame them. And it wasn't safe, but I didn't blame them. It's not them. It's the stuff that they came with that they can't help. Um, so just quickly, as a social worker, I've removed children, and when we think about where trauma comes from, and when I say trauma, also including fetal alcohol syndrome, and I know people are allowed to have their own views, so please respect mine in the fact that I see fetal alcohol and issues that have come from the womb as a trauma, and I am blanketing and saying it's all trauma, but that's to simplify what I'm talking about, and I respect everybody else's opinions. But for now, what I'm saying is that there are lots of different reasons why our children are not functioning the same as other children. So whether it's because they've been emotionally neglected, physically neglected, whether they've witnessed domestic violence, whether they've had the death of a parent or they've been exposed to alcohol in the womb. And these are all sorts of reasons of why our children have come into care or why they have difficulties. Some of them we will have suffered. So it's more of a complex trauma where somebody's suffered more than one or more than two of these episodes. So for my kids, I know it's 10 or plus. And I do use that in conversations with schools when I go and see a school about my kids, and I say, okay, you cannot expect my children to function the same as peers because their trauma rucksack has 12 big rocks in it that they have to carry around into every lesson. And I'm very visual, so that helps me explain that. So we know as a society that the impact on of trauma is on all these things. It's on our biology, it's on our physical being, it's on our neurological pathways, it's on our development, our social capacity, our behavior. Um, and it massively impacts on the whole of us, every element of our being and presence. It doesn't mean to say that we're flawed or failed. It just means that we have to interact with the world differently. And unfortunately, some of that's not translatable to our systems, and that's where Patch is really wanting to sort of, I don't know, make efforts for people to realize that we need more recognition on the impact of trauma. So then from a societal
Good.
impact, we also have, has my internet come back?
Yeah.
The economic impact, the access to services, cultural pressures. I'm not reading them all out. Um, housing and homelessness. Our prisons are full of people who've suffered trauma and then their trauma's been ignored and it's not healed and there's no support or pathway to recovery. Um, so the whole of society feels all of these impacts, and another element of Patch is saying this is not good enough. We need to take more time and more recognition over what our children and our adults in society going through. So as a social worker, when we come along to a family who are in crisis, and I'm not talking adoption crisis or SGO crisis, I'm talking families where the child is being removed, so like from my children or your children or grandchildren, we as social workers, we spend a lot of time writing, and so do other professionals. So we'll spend a lot of time writing what's called a SWEP, which is a social work evidence template. We'll spend a lot of time asking for medical records. We'll spend a lot of time writing a sibling assessment. We'll get statements from parents, family members. We will do full parenting assessments. And in fact, we do quite a number of SWEP documents because there's usually about three. Now, one of my main issues that when I speak to professionals in adoption and social work, is that we spend all that time showing the evidence of why a child needs to be removed, and absolutely not arguing with that. But what we don't do is talk about what they need to repair or recover from what they've experienced. And you don't heal from love alone, and you don't heal, sorry, you don't heal from a clean pillowcase, an education plan, or um, you know, what if you look back and think about what's in your children's care plans, none of that is enough to say this is enough to heal or recover from trauma. And that for me is like a gap across the Grand Canyon that society, and it's not just a UK thing, it's a global thing. We're expecting children and then adults to heal from things that are really serious, that have really shaped a person's life, but we're not taking any account that actually we need to think about recovery, repair, healing. Um, and actually, social workers can't be that clinical analyst that determines what a child needs because we haven't got that qualification. It needs to be a trauma expert. Um, so that's one of the things we're pushing for. And I've kind of already said that. Permanence is forever. I've explained to my children don't live with me at the moment. That's heartbreaking, it's horrible, it's awful. And I deal with it in the way that I think I'm their mum for life. And I want to be their mum for my life. Um, and my hope is that because I'm still mum and I still see them, and I still have a relationship with them, but there was a safety issue. And I have to keep grounding that into I'm still mum and I'm still going to be mum when they're 25. And if I get to a point where they're still coming round for a roast dinner, then that's what I've got to hope for. And as tragic and awful as it sounds, that is the goal. But permanence should be forever. And when we started this, a lot of it was about anger and how we feel and how there's a lot of parental blame. But actually, this is becoming that as much as it's becoming, look, trauma needs to be healed. And doesn't mean we can heal a child from fetal alcohol syndrome, but actually we need a pathway that looks at how to build the scaffolds around their life having a future that they can live safely in and thrive. Um, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with my thing. Um, when have experienced trauma, there's an impact of that trauma, and it's communicating that trauma through behavior, through the way they sleep, the way they eat, the way they breathe, the way they go to school, the way they live, the way they sit in their skin. Um, and it's all very well to say, oh, be therapeutic, or make sure you're telling people what the problems are, or there is no answer because we are not the healers, and we're not clinically. I'm certainly not able to diagnose or plan a pathway that a child needs to thrive, which is my new favorite term. Um, the unrecognized reason we're in crisis, the unwanted truth is that living with a child who's experienced trauma is really hard and at times terrifying. Um, we get thrown parenting courses and blame and judgment when we don't manage. And that's just ignoring the core issues for me. A lot of this is some of the stuff that I've spoken to professionals about, but I really feel that I need to share this with you. Um, Maybe not as in detail as I would with professionals because the first aid bit is more at the end. But it just so that you know where my belief system is. The patch belief system is that we're being blamed and we're being let down and we're not being supported because of gaps in systems. And actually, we've got a right to stand up to that and say this isn't good enough. So that's about me saying empower where we're coming from. So if Harper and Tommy were born into violence, neglect, and addiction, and they lived in unstable, unsafe environments, and Tommy was injured before he was could crawl, and then they were removed for safety after signs of physical abuse were discovered, do they just need some love? Do they just need parents to be resilient? Do they just need therapeutic modeling for the way that parents manage everything? No, actually, we need to see trauma as a critical injury and it needs a pathway to recovery. Can you predict what they are going to struggle with in life? Well, I've been talking to a trauma expert recently, and she says that you can. Actually, from a clinical point of view, if you say a child's been through A, B, C, and D, and that list could go on, you could look at what the likelihood of those trauma symptoms are. And that's what I'm saying needs. It's not writing off children. It's not predicting poor outcomes. It's preparing and scaffolding support, healing, recovery. Um, and it's also about envisaging what we're going to struggle with. What are we going to be challenged with? What do we need to be prepared? And it doesn't mean to say all the preparation in the world will bridge to a different outcome. It's not about that. Um, we need a recovery plan, a repair pathway, or scaffolding to make sure children can thrive. And at the moment, that's not what's happening. So, as I said, we've got social work practice, policy, legislation. We've got our values, humanity, compassion, and empathy, which is supposed to be in social work. But what I'm saying is we need to take lived experience and expertise in complex trauma, even though there's a nice spelling mistake there, apologies. And we need to ensure that pathways are built around our children so that they can thrive. Missing in care planning is that trauma is overlooked, yet it shapes everything. And we're missing out on the beauty of our children because their trauma holds them back. It doesn't show up it shows up at home, not in meetings. Professionals miss it. Caregivers carry it. Behaviors are misjudged and not understood. And love does matter, but it doesn't heal. So this is where we come on to the top tips from people who've lived it. Um, and some of these are contrasting. So it's for you to work out what suits you. And there are more to go on here. So when I send them out, some people love therapy, some people hate it. So you have to work it out what's best for you, but don't sit and wait and don't try it, because for the people who it has made a difference to, the difference is amazing. But try it with an open mind. And if it doesn't work and the alarm bells are there and you know it doesn't work, then don't keep trying it. Try a different therapist if you can. And somebody asked me a social worker actually asked me why are you having therapy? Why do you need therapy? And I'm like, well, actually, I don't see therapy as a weakness. I see it as somebody sitting with me in a space that's helping me make sense of what's happened to me, what's happened to my children, what's happened in my world. And I think it's a sign of strength to do it if it works for you. Um, I also think you do need to, a lot of adopters, SGO carers don't feel they need to explain to schools what's happened to their children. But I think the trauma symptoms will come out to a point where you're going to be back. You're going to be going backwards and you're saying, well, actually, there is this, this, and this. And if it, and doesn't mean to say all schools are going to react the right way, but if you give them some information, it's up to them what they do with it. And they might not always do the right thing, but that preparation is key. And you don't have to give too much information. Um, but a scaffold of, you know, Kenny went through A, B, C, and D, so therefore there will be difficulties in school, and it could be that at 2:30 he's really going to struggle because he's going to be masking all day, or it could be that he might get attached to a teacher and struggle when other kids are around that teacher. Could be anything. Um, I'm quite transparent. That's worked for me in some ways, and it's backfired for me. I also massively do not wait to get legal advice. If you're in a situation you feel like it's building, just get legal advice. Some of it's free, so always be prepared. So first thing I would suggest, and I am doing this from a social work point of view, and I can't take my social work hat off, is build your chronology. And let's just simplify what a chronology is. It's a record of things that have happened because at some point, and it doesn't matter whether it's because of a health reason or because of an education reason or a social care reason, you will need to look back. So if you're pre-matching or you're just had your order. I'm not saying you should sit there and then every day something happens, you should go into it and say, oh, this happened on this day. I'm saying make a little skeleton, as it were, of elements that have happened in your life and your child's life. So it could be that the first time that the child's violent, you note it down. Why, where, what was the triggers? It's not just that record for professionals, it's a record for you to reflect on. And I think it's critical. I I really needed mine. And I know it's a social work tool, but so I've given an example and I'm not saying that you should stick to this. You write it in whatever way. You write it on toilet roll for all I care, but write it, keep it. Make sure it's there so that you can reflect on it. The dates, things like, okay, there was an incident. Did you tell school the next day? So this is an example. Um, you know, first first concerns about speech delay. We told the parent, we people involved was us, and we spoke to the GP and we
Yeah.
referred. But it could also be, little Kenny kicked off at school today, and he scratched my car when he got out of school. Um, your children and what sort of things you should be writing down. Behavior patterns, triggers. Although the list of my kids' triggers is very long, so but it's like it's helpful. The first time you contacted early help to ask for something, the first time you said, okay, we need a child in need plan, or the first time you said, there's something not quite right to the health visitor. Write it down, keep a note, be prepared. Don't stress if you haven't done it. There'll be messages to your mum or your grandma on your phone or your Uncle Tom, and you can go back and look. But even if you just have a base knowledge, it gives you a timeline. So I think it's really important, but I don't want people being stressed about it. Keep it clear, keep it concise. Don't put emotions in there. You can put impact. This was a really bad incident and affected the whole family. But don't load it. It doesn't have to be full of information. And don't share it unless you feel like it's going to a safe place. Second point, well, communication. Now, again, when we started this, I was saying that there's everybody here is going to be at a different part of your journey. So my basic rules, um, when working with, and I've learned from bad experience here of me sort of reacting, and I have walked out of a meeting, and I am a professional, so, but although that was a meeting about my family, um, and so it's about being mindful that there is a blame game for social workers against adopters, SGO carers, kinship carers that aren't managing. So you need to make sure that you are coordinating yourself in a calm and approachable manner, even though you could be absolutely the opposite. Because what we don't want is we don't want people putting things down on paper and that being seen as a negative. So these are my tips for how to manage that. Be prepared, stick to facts. You can bring your documents, your evidence, they have an agenda to stick to, they have processes to follow, policies to tick box, etc. So remember that and accept that you're not in charge of the meeting, they are. Um, be really clear with your language, and focus on impact. Acknowledge emotion. I'm really upset, and I'm going to just take five seconds and just go and get a tissue. You don't have to explain yourself, but you are allowed 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute. Just do it in a calm way. Ask for it in a calm way. Take a pause. Um, I would say I just need to take a minute. I wouldn't say I'm feeling really angry. I'm feeling really frustrated. Remember, they write a lot down. Stay solution focused. Very hard, I know. If they don't have an answer, ask them to get you an answer. I had a situation where police were giving me one uh, decision, and social care was saying, here's another decision. And I was like, well, but neither of you agree. So how are you expecting me to decide what I need to do? And this was when there was a period of volatility in the house, and the police were saying I can manage it one way, and social care was saying I can't. And I'm like, well, it's just confusing. So ask in an email. And if they don't get a response to you, it's because they don't know. But there is your evidence of saying, well, they don't know what to advise me. So that's evidence for you to say, well, I asked the question and I didn't get an answer. Um, keep notes during a meeting. Sometimes you can record them. You're supposed to ask permission, so be careful. Take somebody with you. Make sure they're silent. They're there to take notes. They can say something in your ear. Always check. Know your rights. You have got a right to minutes of meetings unless it's a strategy discussion. And sometimes different local authorities will say section 47 is
Huh? Yeah, the camera's off. Yeah.
somebody needs to mute themselves. So be prepared to ask for permission to record. Be prepared to ask for minutes. If you don't get them, you should get them in a certain time scale. Don't expect minutes from strats. Sometimes professional meetings where there's a situation of, severe sort of mental health of a child, they won't give you those minutes either. So ask what you're allowed and ask what you're not allowed. There's no stupid questions. Um, I prefer keeping interactions via email. I find that this is evidence. It's accountability, it's transparency. We said this on that date. You didn't reply. I'm following that up now. Please, can you give me a response? I just think we live in a really hard situation, and we're not supposed to manage it all. We're not supposed to get it all. We're not supposed to be able to, ride on the top of the waves, and at times we will drown and sink. So for me, if I stick to emails, I can reflect on what I'm saying. I can consider what they're saying after the emotional hit. It's just so much clearer for us all. And it's probably my biggest thing. It's my biggest thing. Please keep to emails where possible. And you can also ask ChatGPT to check your tone. So put something through chat. Am I being unfair? Am I being unreasonable? Am I sounding angry? Utilize that. Don't put whose date of birth is your child is or anything like that, but ask, is my tone okay? Am I sounding professional? Because we do have to be a professional in this, because we have to safeguard ourselves from negative lenses. And I know it sounds awful if you're not in the midst of a crisis, but please, I'm talking from experience and I'm a social worker. So imagine, I've lived this, and a lot of other people in the room have also lived it. So we're talking from our experiences. So please prepare yourself. Um, if you know that your body temperature, your frustration, your breathing is starting to get a bit, oh gosh, this is feeling. Please remember your safety in being able to manage every situation is really important. You are allowed to take a moment. You are allowed to say, oh, somebody's at the door, ring you back. You know, so please prioritize yourself. You don't have to explain. You don't have to give excuses. You don't even have to lie. Just say, I need a minute. Keep it really simple. Don't ask permission to put yourself first. Just do it. It's really important that you do that. Um, Again, like I said earlier, your emotional reaction to situation can be framed. It can be twisted. It has been with me. It has been with others. I'm talking from experience. I'm talking from other people. So just be mindful of that. Don't be scared. Be mindful. And I think it's really important you also know that social workers struggle where they don't quite understand the situation. So they also have a threat response. So you'll be in a threat response, they're going to be in a threat response, and all productivity and solution focus just leaves the room. And I'm not telling you to be mindful from an empathetic point of view. Please do if you want, because actually being a social worker is really hard. But also be mindful, okay, we may both need a step back. So think about it from your thinking brain. Okay, I can see she's getting a bit stressed or he's getting a bit stressed. Actually, we both need it. You can see what's going on for them. And I'm not saying you need to protect them or preserve them, but actually we all need to be in a functioning conversation. So if it's not working for both sides, stop it and say, can we come back to this another day? Don't explain everything if you don't have to. If you feel like you don't have to. I'm not saying lie, and I'm not saying be dishonest, and I'm not saying don't be transparent. What I'm saying is sometimes when we're in a stress response, we vomit, verbal vomit. And I am a really good verbal vomiter. And I think you just need to try and just go. And I honestly, this is true. I have a piece of paper in front of my computer at home that says pause. And it's really important that you do it. And it might feel really uncomfortable, but sometimes you just go, oh gosh, what am I talking about? And just gather yourself because it's really hard to come across as a sane human being when you're in a traumatic situation because of your children's trauma symptoms. And we have to, as horrible as this sounds, safeguard ourselves. So, if you get into a situation where you're up here, stop it. I don't mean stop it as in control yourself. I mean, give yourself a break. Recognize you're allowed to feel like that and take a step away from it. Because actually, what your body is doing, what your emotions are doing, is they're being human. So don't put pressure on yourself. Don't criticize yourself. Don't if you start crying, so what? You start crying. But do take a moment, pause and say, okay, I need a moment. And be okay with that. You're looking after yourself, you're keeping yourself safe. Yeah, so be calm, not passive. I've lost my screen again. Passionate but not angry. I struggle with that sometimes, so I can relate to anybody who may. But again, that's the pause situation. Take it. Um, I don't know whether I'm waffling. 1 second. I think we're doing all right. Parenting styles. We all have different opinions on this, but for me, there's elements of NVR. There's elements of therapeutic parenting. There's elements of PACE. There's elements of secure base model, which fostering use. There's elements of so many different things that I think I put into my parenting, and it hasn't healed trauma. It doesn't mean to say I shouldn't use it. It doesn't mean to say I shouldn't pick it bits and pieces up. And there's a time when I'm curious with my daughter because she's got a face on her, or there's a time where you know, I change my body language, or I get frozen yogurt out of the fridge because I know that really helps my son regulate. So work with what works, but don't pressurize yourself to get a parenting style right because it does not fix trauma. It helps, it builds love, it builds connection, it builds relationships, it builds safety, it doesn't heal. So we need to stop putting pressure on ourselves to be this almighty, amazing parent because it's not the brain surgery that our children need from a clinical point of view. So the pressure off, what is working for me, what works for my child, what builds safety, building relationships, building connection is important. Space, time out, self-care, um, pick what works, what suits your children's personality, what suits yours. Um, don't A lot of people get caught up on the boundaries. Children need boundaries and they need to feel guilt. They need to feel guilt because they need to work out what goes on in the world and how it impacts on other people. What we don't want is children feeling shame for the rest of their lives because they've been horrible or naughty or they've done this. Like my children can be violent. I don't hold that against them at all. But do I tell them it's not nice and it hurts? Yeah, of course I do. But then I tell them I love them. And I always love them. And it doesn't matter how many times they smash my face in, I'll always love them. So it's balancing that guilt, shame. We don't want shame. We do need boundaries. You need to know when you've done something wrong. Um, Try and be the regulated one in the room, but again, it's not perfection. Kids need to know if you're having a wobble. They need to know that we're a human being inside and we're not a robot. Safety first. My daughter, when things are getting hectic, she'd be like, I'm going for a walk. So, okay, go. That's her safety. She needs to be safe. She needs to go and take some fresh air. So acknowledge that. Yeah, okay, go. Safety is massively important. You know, ask for help. Get your neighbours to come around and sit with your kids while you have a shower, as long as they're, not scary. And that you know them properly, not random strangers. Um, Distract works for my kids sometimes it doesn't connect. I mean, these are just things that have worked for me. I'm not telling you to do them. I'm telling you to pick things that you like, that work for you. We are different personalities. We're not robots. We should pick things that work for us, that work for our core values, our ethics, our morals. My morals and my ethics are not the same as whoever lives next door to me, but that's okay. So don't we so much pressure on ourselves to be this perfect person, this perfect parent, and being all therapeutic. Actually, kids need to know when you've had enough. Kids need to know. They need to see. Not in a dysregulated, raving, shouting, screaming, but sometimes having a cry in front of your kids is okay. So, you know, although I have done the raving and the shouting stuff, and I'm not giving myself a hard time about it. Uh, I'm sure you all know this, but behavior is communication. My children get out of school and their heads explode. And I will not now pick them up from school because they are old enough to walk back, and that 45 minutes is their bit where they can go, oh, so think about it. And it could be about breaking a cycle. If you know they've masked all day, what can you change about that minute you're reunited with them? Because that's when they're going to show you their behavior. And that was a big deal for me every day, the pick up from school. We don't get it right every time. Don't give yourself a hard time. Reflect, think about it, connect it to what can you do differently. Do reflect a lot, but not where you go, I'm shit, I'm awful, I'm horrible, I'm terrible, I'm an absolute terrible mum. That isn't going to help anybody. It really doesn't. I mean, if you are doing something really wrong, then, get help. But I'm talking about general stuff. We are so pressured into thinking this is on us, that we've got to do better and we've got to get it right. It's not. And the more we take time to reflect on that, the better. And I can't even see the bottom ring. Oh, being curious. Sometimes we're not in the right mood to be curious, but it does talking out loud when your child is throwing stuff across the room. I wonder why you're doing that today. I don't know what's happened to you. It's just a way of building a different narrative. Again, I'm not here to give you parenting advice in this sense, but these are just some of my thoughts. This is one of my bugbears. If they social care tell you to go on a parenting course, please get out a list of all the ones you've already done and all the books you've already done and all the boxes you've already read about different things and say, do you think I really need to go on another parenting course? Can't tell you how many social workers I've met in the last few weeks where I've done patch presentations and I said, stop sending people on parenting courses. And I didn't beep at the end, but I wanted to. It we can't learn in crisis. Okay, so remember that phrase. You cannot learn in crisis. You cannot. As a social worker, I know that if I'm working with a really, really addicted drug addict who is in absolute crisis with his addiction, I am not going to change his addiction by putting him on a drug and alcohol course. If I have an intervention where somebody goes and meets him every day and they talk about strategies and they talk about safety of drug taking, they build a relationship and a connection, then maybe something at the end of that will look like drug-free life. But if we throw learning at people in a crisis, no matter who you are, you're not taking anything away. So stand your ground and say, listen, this is what I've done. These are the books I've read. These are the resources. These are who I've spoken to. You can tell them you've been on the first aid course for Patch as well, right? And this is what I think. I don't feel there's going to be a benefit of another parenting course. So stand your ground. And I will never go on another parenting course again because I've done 13, I think it is, and it's ridiculous. Again, stick to your guns. Use what works. Be sensible, fair, and rational. Don't be hard on yourself. I'm just going to check time because I do tend to get sidetracked and we're supposed to be on question and answers. Support network. I honestly, truthfully believe that support work can make your support network can make a massive difference, but they can also make a massive mess of everything. So teach them, educate them, give them as many books as possible. Say if you're interested in helping me, read this, otherwise you're never going to get it. Be blunt. But please accept that they're not going to get it because relationships are dying left, right, and centre from people who have expectations that their aunt, uncle, grandmother, sister, brother should get it. And I get where there's an end to a relationship because it's broken and actually it's become quite nasty. But I do think we need empathy for people who don't get it because actually I don't know if I would have got it if I was on the other side. So just remember that they're human beings. They don't want to see you in this pain. They don't want to see you in this torture. They don't want to see you struggling. And actually they don't understand. So don't expect them to, don't lose them. Just find a different way to have a relationship. Um, I just tell my mum to shut up now. And she said, you've just told me to shut up silently, haven't you? And I'm like, yes, can you just shut up? Okay, I'll shut up. And it's 13 years since we started having these conversations. Verity and others in the group love the let them. I don't know much about it, but I've mentioned it. Yeah, don't judge. Take time out. If somebody's making you feel judged, back off a bit. Don't give up. There's loads of books out there that sum things up and spell things out. And if they're interested, then let them read it. Let them look at it. Be practical. My mum used to come round so I could go and have a shower and a poo. Let them do stuff like that. They don't have to do the deep and meaningful stuff. They don't have to hold your hand. They don't have to do the psychological stuff. Let them do the real basics because that's sometimes so important, so valid, and so much of what we need. Again, you could take 100 teachers, safeguarding leads in the school, and they still wouldn't understand what children have been through, like ours. So why are you expecting your grandmother, your aunt, and your uncle to get it? If our school teachers and our education staff and our health visitors and our NHS staff don't get it because they haven't been trained, I'm not blaming anybody there. We shouldn't be expecting our family members to get it. So give them a break because this is hard for them. And I'm trying to speed up. Self-care. I know some self-care, if you'd have said to me 3 years ago, you need some self-care or for a professional, I think I'd have shot them because I couldn't even have a shower. So self-care for me was my three children were asleep and I was able to play Sudoku on my phone. That was my self-care. So self-care doesn't have to be you've gone for a spa. It can be any moment. It could be actually I was talking to somebody today and we said our self-care at moments of crisis, child to parent violence, was sitting in our car and crying because you actually had a safe space to cry. So it can be anything you want it or need to be. I mean, if it doesn't work for you, don't put pressure on yourself. And if somebody says, you need some self-care, then just nod. It is what you need it to be. It might look like a safety plan. I have a friend, I don't know whether she's on here, but she used to come around and take one of my kids off me for a few hours just so that I could regulate the rest of the family. She would regulate one and I would regulate the other two. Do whatever works to make sure you have a backup at some point. Think outside the box. Um, yeah. So lots of people like therapy, lots of people hate it. Lots of people say it saved their lives. Certainly saved mine. It helped me make sense. These are not all my comments, by the way. Helped me feel heard, kept me going, gave me tools. Try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Safety plan. Um, I locked all the windows. I'd locked boxes for spare phones, for vapes that I found around the house, for sharps, for medication. Just do it when you need to do it. Don't think twice about it. Don't think, oh God, I feel like a prison officer. Just do it. If you need to do it, do it. Stop feeling bad about it. Police marker on your home so that if there is child to parent violence and you ring them, they know what it's about. They get to read first. They don't just come out and say, oh yeah, you're overreacting. They know they've read 5 seconds and said, actually, this is a crisis situation. Doesn't mean I'm not saying because you've done it, it's going to be all singing, all dancing, but it may add a little bit of better support. Me and my daughter have the word aubergine, so if she's ever in a difficult situation, she texts me aubergine, and then I know that she needs something. But I think it's really good if you could text if you've got a supportive neighbour or an aunt or somebody lives by, you could text them aubergine, and they know I just popped in for a cup of tea. Simple things sometimes make the easiest fixes in a period, and it's not going to fix anything long term. But if it just means that one moment's avoided, um, oh, I went too fast, but I don't know how to go back. So we've had that one. Wait a second. Oh, there we go. Witnesses. I had a really my now husband. We had really strong boundaries. You're not allowed to come with me. You're not allowed to come near me when the boys are hitting me. Obviously, that's really hard, but it was the boundary. He was a witness, but I didn't want him near with me because that's not fair on him and that's not fair on them. They don't know him like I know him. They do now, obviously, but this is back in the day. He can't interfere with their safe space, even if they're doing something unsafe. So be really pragmatic about what's right for your kids, even in the worst of their moments. Um, and witnesses are good. And I know some people have cameras, and I can't say I agree with it or I don't agree with it. But what I would say is don't put pressure on yourself. If you need one, you need one. It's very dependent on your situation. Obviously, don't put them in a bedroom. Don't put them in a bathroom. Be sensible. Nobody needs a criminal record for something stupid, even if it was the right meaning. Um, I used to, you know, keep them separate. One's kicking the crap out of you, then the other two go in a different room. They don't need to witness it. Repair afterwards. Make sure the house is in order. And I know it's all really hard and it's really horrible, but you've got to keep going. I'm going to speed up a little bit more. Profiles. So I went into school and explained about what trauma rocks my children have, what they've been through, how it will have manifested in their behavior, and said this is why she cannot or he cannot sit in class and learn like peers. There are some trauma decks. I can't remember the slide at the end's got them on where I think there's 12 or 15 cards that look at what spell it out. So sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, emotional abuse, things like that. Putting them in front of a person who spends a lot of time with your kids is really quite a validating exercise to do. This is why this my child is different. And actually, people go, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's not an excuse, not a reason for bad behavior, but it's an explanation of why things are different for some children. So if it helps you write a profile on what your child has been through, didn't always have access to food, so we may steal food. It's common sense, some of this, but having it down on paper can sometimes put it in perspective for us. It can make sense. You can use this as an example. This isn't a clinical thing, it's just mine. What helps? Frozen yogurt was a big one for my kids because it cools their mouth and that really regulates. Um, make sure there's nice things in the profile. As I said, these can all be used, seen. So importantly, it's really important that we're heard, but don't lose your marbles and don't show your aggression or how you're feeling. We are allowed to be angry, we're allowed to be exhausted, we're allowed to be overwhelmed. Um, don't silence yourself because you're scared of saying it. It's when you go back to the email process and then you can put it down, you can check it in ChatGPT. Am I writing? And please keep things concise. Nobody needs to read 10 pages. That's not fair on anybody. Imagine a social worker, and I'm not saying, that it's okay for them to ignore you, but social workers have caseloads of 30 to 40. So imagine every parent sends 10 emails a day with 10 pages. It's never, no matter how much you want to be heard, you're never going to be heard. So keep it concise, keep it short, keep it simple. Know what you're asking before you're asking it. Ask it as a question, direct question. Can we access this? Can we have this? When are we having a meeting? Speak facts, not with fire. These are my top resources. You don't have to take any notice, but this is a new book by Betsy Terry, written for everybody, but not children, obviously. It's awesome, amazing. I think I need a second one now because it's got so many notes in it. These are the cards I was on about, the adverse childhood experience. I do want to contact Dr. Warren Larkin and say, can you just make the cards where it's the trauma ones? And then the price will be cheaper because it comes with a load of other cards that I'm not using. Um, but it's really good. So make your own if you've got a laminator. Emotional neglect, emotional abuse. You don't have to go into detail or context with any of that. Saying that your child was removed for emotional neglect should be enough for a professional to say, okay, it's serious. They must have had evidence of that. They must have had enough to prove that to a court. So you don't need to spell it out. You don't need to sell your child's story in any way. It's put in the right context now. My child suffered emotional neglect. We're not oversharing. We're giving basics that you need to know because you're looking after my child for 6 hours in reception. Strange and Curious Guide to Trauma. My daughter's read it. It's awesome. It's great for adults that don't get it. It's great for kids. It talks about wonky carrots. I love it. And then Brain-Based Parenting was really good as well. And I'm not a reader, but a dip in and dip out kind of thing. There are lots of resources on the website as well. So that is it. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording. 1 second.